closer, yeah. And a little bit closer. You know each other.
Okay.
And a little more closer. Come the closer. Perfect. And then straight ahead.
Vous pouvez avancer un pas s'il vous plaît.
This way.
Lina par ici, un peu plus haut, Voilà.
Juste à côté plus haut.
Bruno, juste en face de vous, deuxième rang. C'est parfait. Moi aussi.
Okay. Do you want to discuss? Alors, on
Together.
Please. Come this side. Come over here.
Okay.
Non, là c'est bien.
And only just straight ahead, please. In the middle.
And just nice this way on the left hand.
Straight ahead, in the middle.
Okay, let's do.
Fais un peu un.
Alors, Lina, on commence par vous. Ok. Alors, Bruno Dumont est tout seul. Mais non.
On est devant, monsieur Dumont.
Regardez. Voilà, un petit peu par là.
Juste à gauche, s'il vous plaît. Monsieur Dumont, s'il vous plaît. Juste à gauche. Monsieur, juste à gauche, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, j'attends. Voilà, on est là.
Et encore une fois, on this side, Bruno.
And one more look in the middle.
Un pas vers moi. Un pas vers moi.
Bruno,
Merci.
merci beaucoup. Juste à gauche. Monsieur. Bruno.
N'oubliez pas, voilà. Laissez ma voix. Voilà. Merci.
Merci.
Hello. Okay.
Down here, please.
Okay.
Please.
On vous a pas ici, là, tout droit.
This way.
Just stay up.
And one look straight ahead in the middle. Straight ahead.
Down here.
And one look straight ahead in the middle. That's it.
Go to the right, please. Please.
Just in front of you.
Brandon with the two chest.
That's it. Thank you.
Let's look up here.
Together.
Okay, can we start here in the corner? Here we go.
Stand here, please. Come on.
Nina. Okay, can we see?
And only just straight ahead in the middle, please.
Yeah.
In the middle.
No.
All together. Okay.
Wait,
No, just to look in the middle, yeah.
Il fait des phrases complètes.
Maintenant, vous nous regardez, nous.
Et maintenant, vous regardez
Au deuxième rang,
Un pas en avant là s'il vous plaît.
Sur votre droite.
Merci.
Merci.
Le directeur.
Allez, là, juste en face. Nina.
Sinon ça marche pas.
Voilà, tous les trois.
Par ici. Un peu plus haut,
Oui, juste à
parfait.
gauche aussi, s'il vous plaît.
Ina. Yep.
Alors, Lina, alors, reste.
Oui, là, c'est ici, oui, échappé.
On y est. Allez.
Voilà, Lina. Allez, à droite, là, ici.
Lina.
And one look in the middle.
Lina.
And in the middle, stay with me. Yeah.
Ici.
In the middle.
Trois fois de vide, au-dessus. Ina. Au deuxième rang, ici, comme tout à l'heure. Voilà, par ici.
Mademoiselle.
And in the
Juste ici, s'il vous plaît.
And in the middle again,
Lina.
And straight ahead.
Pas Nina.
And Lina straight ahead.
Un pas vers moi. Merci.
Voilà, Lina. Un regard par ici. Allez, please.
Voilà.
Lina.
Les yeux.
Ok, merci à la Maria.
Okay, can we start here in the corner? Thank you.
Le cadre, please.
Là devant. Là devant.
And one look straight up, please. Yes.
Voilà.
And just above.
Voilà, regardez par
Just here on the left, please.
J'ai pas le regard.
Un pas vers moi.
Juste à gauche, s'il vous plaît.
Juste à gauche, s'il vous plaît.
Par ici, c'est comme ça. On voit la même ici.
Read that again in the middle. Read that again.
Ah, il va falloir le faire. Hein.
Un regard.
And one again. And in the middle again.
Est-ce que je peux avoir juste un regard?
Non.
Non.
Merci.
Merci.
Là devant.
Droit devant vous.
Yes.
Ah là, par ici, par ici, par ici. Hop, hop, hop.
Vous m'avez oublié, quoi.
In the corner over here.
And would you come up to left? Yes, perfect. And straight up. In the middle. Perfect. Stay in the middle. In the middle.
Et un
And just above.
middle.
And in the middle again.
Hop, hop, hop.
Ah, on peut pas, s'il vous plaît.
Un pas vers
Juste
moi.
ici, s'il vous plaît.
Merci.
Merci. Parfait.
On n'arrête jamais.
Merci beaucoup, au revoir.
À tout à l'heure.
The press conference for the competition entry L'Empire, the Empire by Bruno Dumont from Belgium, one of the most obstinate and always surprising European directors. This time he plays with the fantasy genre, but also employs religious motives. Perhaps this is a story of redemption. We are in northern France in a fishing village where a very special baby is born, unique and strange. This baby triggers a war between extraterrestrial forces. Coming up, the press conference so you can see how much interpretation is possible and how much the director is prepared to disclose.
Les temps sont proches.
Sire, vous voici enfin parmi nous.
Ne tardons pas.
Nous livrons bataille pour la cause dont vous êtes la souveraine. Ici, sur la Terre.
Vous avez pas vu un ovni?
Un quoi?
Un ovni.
Les humains sont attachants. C'est pour cela que nous allons envahir la Terre tout entière. Le prince des ténèbres doit être enlevé de la surface de la Terre.
Celui qui touche à mon crédit, il y a 2 cadres à sa gueule.
L'entreprise est vouée à l'échec.
La gendarmerie sur le coup.
Mais les humains, Johnny, sont nuls. Faites attention à ce que vous dites. Vous vous adressez quand même à la gendarmerie nationale.
So what? Les forces adverses sont redoutables.
Même si on est ennemi, t'es vraiment belle.
Tu veux que je te la dégage? S'ils ont la force, on a la sagesse.
T'as pas peur du démon, toi?
J'ai surtout pas peur des hommes.
C'est quoi ça? C'est une belle bande de losers.
C'est peu de le dire.
Il faut s'en prendre plein la gueule.
À la bataille! Les 4 Viennes, mon empire! Bah, allez, où la voiture?
Ouais, là, la voiture qui a parti.
Bonjour.
Good afternoon.
Bonjour.
Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to this press conference for the film The Empire, screening and competition at the 74th Berlinale.
Je vais commencer par vous présenter nos invités en
I'd like to start by introducing our guests, starting on your left.
Elle avait déjà coproduit un film.
She previously co-produced a Bruno Dumont film with Red Balloon Films. In Germany, the co-producer, Dorothee Beinemeyer.
C'est son premier rôle au cinéma. Il est
His
Johnny, le
first
géniteur de la bête, Brandon
role in cinema, and Brandon Viga, the father of the beast.
Elle a remporté le César du meilleur espoir.
She won the César for Best Young Actress for L'Événement. That's Jane, the great warrior. Anna Maria Bartolomei.
Cinéaste en perpétuelle réinvention, aucun de ses
A constantly
films ne laisse indifférent. Nous sommes
imaginative filmmaker. His films never leave anybody indifferent. In the Berlin competition for the very first time, Bruno Dumont.
Également lauréate d'un César, son surgissement
Another
du paysage
César
français est
winner
encore
is
récent,
coming
mais son
up next. She's just appeared on the
immense,
French
Lina Coudry.
cinema scene recently, but she's had a great impact already. Lina Coudry. Humanity counts on him, although he's not so great with the light saber. Julien Magnier.
Il forme avec Bruno Dumont l'un des duos producteurs.
Together with Bruno Dumont, he's one of the most solid producer-filmmaker duos in the history of cinema. Jean Bréa.
Je suis à vous dans un instant. Je vais poser la première question.
I'll open up to you in just a moment, but I would like to put the first question to Bruno Dumont. Thank you very much for this astonishing tragic comedy between the earth and outer space.
Déjà en tête dans sa globalité, ou est-ce que si vous avez suivi le fil d'une idée ou d'une
Were you picking up on an idea, or did you already have the whole vision in your head when you started out? Well, I above all wanted to make a science fiction film. I love space operas because I think that it's a very fascinating and entertaining way to address particularly complex issues. The origin of the world, the meaning of the world, the meaning of time. And at the same time, I wanted to remain within this earthly realm that I'm used to. And that's why I thought that I would combine the two aspects. Are there any questions already? Or reactions from the room?
Jean, alors peut-être on peut vous entendre sur cette proposition.
Jean, perhaps we could hear from you. What's your response to this proposal? It's perhaps a little bit more complex than others that you've worked on together with Bruno, is it not? Well, yes, it was quite complex because of the cost of the film in a sense, but it was a lot of fun. It was a great proposal. We set off full of confidence. As we always do, we attained our goal. So perhaps we could hear from the German producer as well, Dorothee. It's the second time that you're working with Jean and Bruno. Is it the start of a great adventure together? So how did you become involved with this? Well, it worked out very well for the second time as well. It was wonderful to work with Bruno again. And with Jean as co-producer.
Always fun and good movie in the end.
Oui, au milieu, s'il vous plaît.
In the middle, please.
Une question pour Monsieur Dumont, mais aussi pour
a question from Mr. Dumont, but also for all of the cast.
Comparer votre travail à Bresson.
Your work's often been compared to that of Bresson. In particular, the fact that you use non-professional actors as well.
Le fait d'avoir recours à des acteurs non professionnels était peut-être encore plus challengeant.
Here, perhaps it was still more challenging than in other films because it was science fiction. So how did you involve non-professionals in the cast as well in this time around? Well, yes. There were superheroes, on the one hand, who come from outer space.
professionnels.
I thought it would be good to have professional actors for that because they are the heroes of cinema, after all.
Pour traiter et pour représenter des anti-héros, le
And
contraire.
then to represent the anti-heroes,
des non-professionnels.
I also thought it would be a good idea to work with non-professional actors in some cases. So I brought together these worlds, the anti-heroes and the superheroes, and I had them coexist. That was really the goal in the film, this new meeting between the two.
Et du coup, pour les comédiens,
and a question for the cast as well.
Vous réagissez comment à la lecture de ce scénario?
How did you react when you read the screenplay? Perhaps I can start. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. How did I react? Well, it's not a classic screenplay, of course, because, of course, it's very literary. It's like a novel in many ways. That means that you really want to go and talk to Bruno immediately and talk to him about the story. And that's certainly what happened to me. I really wanted to meet Bruno, and when we did meet, I understood what he was trying to achieve. We talked a great deal. That's exactly what made me feel like getting involved in this project. It was almost the opposite for me because I met Bruno. I didn't understand what he was getting at. I read the screenplay and then I really wanted to be on board and I said yes to the project. As Lena said, he has a rather literary way of writing his screenplays, so it was rather unusual. It's not written in the conventional way. You don't have the names of the characters in front of the dialogues necessarily. You'll stop me if I say anything silly. So just have the dialogue and you switch from one character to another. You have to really pay attention. I was always saying to myself, hang on, is it me who's talking? Or is it my counterpart? But of course he explained everything to us. Oh, did I? Really? Everything? Enemy. Well, Jane, who is she? Is she a romantic heroine? Is she an action hero, a cross between Lara Croft and a Jedi Knight? Do you feel the same after having read the screenplay and having made the film? Well, I have to say, I think that during the filming process, she became a lot deeper. And she is quite a complex figure in a way. She is the one who's torn in two directions by her desires. She has this conflict within her. She wants to put an end to the Wayne, that's why she comes to Earth, but her human side leads her astray, feelings, emotions. She falls victim to that. But gradually, she managed to get a grip on herself and come back to her mission. So that was very interesting. I think that was really something that bubbled up on the set more than anything else. She was really an action heroine for me at the beginning, but later she became a woman really tormented by her feelings. Question at the back, please.
German press agency. Ich muss in Deutsch fragen, weil mein
I'm going
Französisch ist nicht.
to speak German because my French isn't so great. So
Der Film wurde jetzt auch so ein bisschen beschrieben als Star Wars Parodie. Wie viel
it's
Star
been
Wars
described as a Star Wars parody. How much Star Wars were you actually thinking of? And to all of those who had a lightsaber in your hands, how was it to have a lightsaber? Was it fun to shoot with the lightsaber? Did you enjoy having the lightsaber there?
C'est ce qu'ils disent à Star Wars, à la guerre des étoiles. Est-ce que tu as pensé à ça? Ils disent, on a l'impression que c'est une parodie de la guerre des étoiles et de Star Wars.
Ce n'est pas une parodie de la guerre des étoiles.
Well, it's not a parody of Star Wars.
J'ai vu récemment le film de Mel Brooks.
I recently saw Mel Brooks' film. That's a proper parody. There are a few quotes, let's say, but I didn't want to pick up on the same narrative. The film refers to a whole host of great science fiction films, including Star Wars. There's Planet of the Apes, for example, 2001, all of those sci-fi films. It's the genre that interested me.
de m'approcher d'un genre que j'estime.
I wanted to explore a genre which I very much appreciate. It's a very powerful, forceful genre.
Tellement simple et divertissant.
It's a very straightforward and entertaining way to tackle very serious questions. Imagine you have a spaceship going out into outer space and travelling towards the infinite. That speaks to us. It's a very simple way for us to address the question of infinity on Earth. It's a very abstract concept, whereas in outer space it becomes clearer what the infinite might signify. So I'm interested in that kind of cinema. I wasn't at all trying to be ironic or to poke fun at the genre. I always said that to the entire cast and crew. We're not making fun of this. That's why the special effects were very good, very precise. Generally, when you see this kind of film, it's really spectacular and very impressive. That's why Jean said it was expensive. We really had to be good enough. A question for Julia and Anna Maria. How it was with the lightsabers. Did you enjoy that? Yes, it was fun. It was lots of fun.
Ludique.
It was playful, in a sense.
Chorégraphié par Bruno?
And choreographed by Bruno? Well, yes, of course, absolutely.
La référence évidente qui est
I mean, it's the clear reference. There's also the Matrix as well. But we weren't trying to just copy that. We took that as our point of departure, but we came up with our own choreography. Bruno helped us, and we added our own little bits here and there and came up with what you see in the film.
Pardon, tu voulais dire quelque chose? Oui.
Good evening. My name is Mahari Sigit, African Refugee News. I saw the film yesterday night. And it's a complex film, so I want to know the challenges you found also in the camera work, and how it was for you to work with these young guys. They were really fantastic.
Il a dit qu'on est fantastique.
Okay. Double question sur les difficultés.
So two questions there, the challenges of filming certain scenes, but there's also the question as well as to how it was for you to work with these young, wonderful actors. That was a compliment really rather than a question in a way.
Eh bien, merci beaucoup.
Well, thank you.
Est-ce qu'on répond à la première question quand même?
Oui. Are we going to answer the first question, perhaps? Was there a question in there? Were there some scenes that were difficult, that were challenging to film? Well, not exactly.
Le cinéma, c'est faire du vrai avec du faux.
Of course, cinema is all about making something real with something not real, so it's not difficult as such.
C'est comme un baiser de cinéma. En même temps,
it's like
c'est faux, en même temps, il faut le
a kiss on the big screen. You know that it's not for real, but you have to nonetheless show it. And that's what I love about film, about the cinema. It is the cinema. What's most important is that it's convincing. You have to convince your audience, but often it's not actually real, of course. There's lots of things that are not real per se. And that's the whole art of making films. It's fascinating. I love my job, and I also love what the actors do. We look for ways to work with them and to conjure up emotions in the audience, but there's all kinds of tricks that we have up our sleeves when they're crying, for example. They're not really crying necessarily.
Mais forcément, tu as raison. Un petit peu.
But yes, you're right. To some extent, they are crying. So you need to really be convincing. That is what is so special about an actor. An actor will look inside themselves and use them for their performance, but it's not about suffering or pain. That's not part of the whole story. Brandon, we haven't heard from you yet. Maybe you'd like to add something. It is quite a striking role that you play, a fairly major role. It's your first role on the big screen.
Le versant de ce que vient de dire Bruno, comment vous étiez dirigé, est-ce que vous étiez
So how was it for you? How was it to be directed? After all, you work with actors who've already won a César in France. Well, yes, it worked very well. It was great for me to work with Anna Maria and Lena. They gave me a helping hand, and Bruno's way of working is very interesting because we work with earbuds. And as non-professionals, we don't read the screenplay. That keeps us natural in front of the camera. And I think what he really loves is this element of innocence that we have in us, in a sense, and that we really just represent who we are. That does come across on the screen. But it was great. It was really cool, I have to say.
Allez-y.
Claudia Schulmerich, Frankfurt, Weltexpresso.
Claudia Schulmerich from World Express now. You don't often see so many women in this kind of film. I really noticed that. I mean, usually you see men playing these kind of roles, these heroes, not so many women. And when I was watching it, I was always on the side of the women. I'll just wait for a moment till we get the text sorted.
Also von vorne. Gut. Ja.
So, once more from the top, what I was saying is that there's lots of women in this film in a genre in which women are not so terribly important, generally speaking. And I'm always on women's side as well. But here, there were women who were the good guys and women who were the bad guys as well. And I was always torn. I wondered whose side I should be on. And I wanted to ask the director, whose side are you on in the combat between these forces?
Lynn ou Jane? T'es avec Lynn?
Who are you with? Are you on Lynn's side or on Jane's side? Which do you prefer?
Tu soutiens qui?
No, I'm not going to choose between the two. Who do you support in this struggle? The two are complementary in a way. Don't forget, there's no humans. They're all half-finished androids here. It's really the back history of the world. It's the prehistory of the world. It's the origin of the world.
Pourquoi sommes-nous brassés par le bien et par le mal?
Why are we tormented by good and by evil? This is a fable that explains to you all the origin of this. It's like a myth that says, well, once upon a time there was this power of good, there was the power of evil. They came down onto earth, they came together, they were attracted one to the other and created human beings. And what you see is that they are becoming human. They're not human yet, they're neither male nor female. They're demons, as she says at one point in the film. But there is the man and the woman within them, in germination, about to become. There's also the human touch of love. Well, yes, it's love that makes everything complicated. Love causes chaos, and of course that continues to be the case. It's always that way. We're not making headway. I think that the world of today shows very clearly how these forces are still at work in us. They're still good, they're still evil. We know very well what needs to be done, and we keep on not doing it. So it's a way to show that that prehistory is still unfurling. There's always something prehistoric within us. Despite the digital universe, despite progress, there is something which doesn't progress. That's what this film talks about. And if the ones are the good guys, why do they use violence? If the ones, the number ones, are the good guys, why do they use violence? Well, if you look at the Queen talking, you'll hear that she talks in fairly tough tones. There's enough examples in the world of religion as well. Think of crusades that were carried out in the name of good. And you can have wars conducted in the name of what is good, as far as I know.
Je vous en prie, oui.
Noch eine Frage an den Regisseur.
Another question for the director, if I may. As to the spaceships, some of them were palaces, some of them were churches. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the idea with the architecture and how it was to shoot with that.
En fait, quand on regarde l'histoire des films, des odyssées spatiales,
if you look at space operas, there are major films. I'm thinking of Star Wars in particular, and 2001, and they in a sense are role models. Most films today, all of these series that talk about outer space, tend to always draw on the same thing. It's always the same kind of spaceship. There's always copies of that. It's a genre which copies itself a great deal.
et que j'ai dû créer un vaisseau spatial.
And when I was trying to dream up the spaceship that I wanted to show, I tried in my modest way to innovate, not to just copy the same kind of spaceship we've seen thousands of times over. So what I wanted to do was to take gems of human architecture. The Sainte-Chapelle is for good, and the Caserta Palace in Italy for evil. I wanted to have a new kind of spaceship, and these are spaceships that come down onto Earth. And so they already transport the gems of Earth as role models for what will be produced on Earth in future.
Et Jean-Sébastien Bach, c'est la musique du diable?
And Jean-Sébastien Bach is the music of the devil?
Alors, Jean-Sébastien...
Well...
En fait, Jean-Sébastien Bach...
Jean-Sébastien Bach, yes. Well, that's the music of the spaceships.
Parce que moi, j'ai commencé par mettre du Jean-Sébastien Bach sur les vaisseaux.
I started with Bach for the spaceships. And I said to myself, I'm not sure about this. There's a great filmmaker who used classical music with spaceships, and perhaps he's the only one who could have done that. That was really that as far as that's concerned. So the sound that you hear when the spaceships move through space is a sound. But it's a sound which is a compressed version of Bach. There's a melody in it that you don't hear, but that's present nonetheless. And that's a kind of driving force. It's like the engine, in a sense, of the spaceship. Because, of course, our friend here is a car mechanic. He knows that an engine will sing, in a sense. It sings out. And so the spaceships are creating their own musical creation. And Bach, when it comes to the actual musical sections, he is the greatest composer, if you ask me. And that's why I chose to use his music. But I'm thinking of the scene when you kiss, the two of you, close to the horses. That's a really cinematic love scene. It's lyrical, it's poetic, it's wonderful. And you have Bach with the organ music. In a sense, like the icing on the cake, it's the sense of desire there as well.
Oui?
My question is about the camera work, because this is a complex film. So I think what were the challenges, because I'm not a cameraman, but I write about films, and so I would like to hear from you, not to read from other people. What were the challenges for you making this film?
Ouais, j'en profite pour saluer la présence du chef opérateur dans la salle.
We'd like to say that we've got the DOP right here with us, and four of the other co-producers I forgot to mention right at the beginning. So a warm welcome to the cinematographer, David Champy.
Je ne sais pas si Bruno, tu veux répondre ou...
Bruno, I don't know if you want to answer, or as to the cinematography, how the camera work was. Well, of course, the camera work was very important.
Vous savez, dans l'heure, on ne filme que des champs et des gens, quoi. Donc la caméra, elle transfigure tout ça. Donc
we, in a sense, look at people, we look at fields, but the camera work is absolutely vital. It's central. It plays a cinematographic role, let's say. The sets are there, they're prepared, they wait to be filmed. It's like the faces of the actors that you see here. You see them here, but when you see them in the film, there's something almost magical that happens, a cinematographic transfiguration that happens, and that is the magic of it. I really believe in that, and that's why I think you can film in a very simple way. You can film very straightforward settings and sets and very straightforward stories, but realize that there's almost an alchemical reaction that happens with the camera, and that will get right through to the most profound strata of our psyche. It's a quite remarkable way of looking at things. It's a work of introspection, in a sense. It's a bit like a telescope, in a way. It looks at something It looks very deeply, it looks into our hearts and sees something. I mean, I said this is prehistory, but it's the camera that makes that happen. That's what cinema's all about, after all. It's something fundamental, really.
Pourquoi Belzébuth choisit Fabrice Lucchini comme enveloppe?
Why did Belzebuth choose Fabrice Lucchini as his human form? Why did he choose Fabrice Lucchini as his human form? Well, that's because it was in the screenplay. That's why he went for it. Well, why did you then make that decision? Let's put the question a different way. Well, Lucchini's character is particularly striking. It's very Lucchini. I'd already worked with him in the past. I wanted a devil who would be diabolical but very truculent, a little bit crazy, a little bit wacky almost, in fact. So I suggested it to Lucchini because I'm aware that he can act in a very serious way, but he's also very humorous. He's great at comedy, and I really pushed the Lucchini cursor right up. He really pulls out all the stops. So he really expressed evil, but in the realm of comedy. You might say that's a bit strange as a thing to do, but it was, in a way, my choice, not just to show evil being evil, but to show evil in a humorous fashion with this mischievous touch. And as you'll see, he really acted in his own very particular, unique way. It was very funny. And Lena, you're on the same side as him, are you not? And it's one of the most humorous roles that you've played here. And you came up with clever ideas physically in your performance. How did those arise? Well, there were the scenes that we're a bit concerned about, the possession scene, for example, when we're possessed by the demons, when these changes are downloaded into our bodies. There are some bugs in what's downloaded into our bodies, and we discussed this as well right at the very beginning when we were talking about the costumes as well with Bruno, and Bruno started to give me some ideas. I came up with other ideas as well, and that's how we ended up with what we ended up with. It was really a work in progress. If we'd had another 2 months, it would have come out different again. We were constantly looking for ideas, inventing ideas beforehand and on set as well. And I was fortunate enough to go to those places, let's say. It was very challenging and very exciting to do something I'd never done before. It was great.
Merci. Alors, on va s'arrêter là. Merci pour votre intérêt.
We're going to wind up for now. Thank you for being with us, and I hope you have a great premiere this evening. Thank you.